Let's talk about matchups. Let's talk about the Sweet 16. That's what we're going to do for the balance of the show. Mackenzie, I want to ask you, now that we have 16 teams left, give me your most advantageous matchup in terms of we've got one team facing another, and it looks like it's just a tough matchup for that team.
Yeah, I think from a grander scheme, I've said it a ton on this show. I think Duke in general has the easiest path just from, a region outlook. But I'm looking at this Auburn-Michigan game specifically, and it's more about how, Auburn's been playing to their floor and winning, it feels like. Like we haven't had the breakout awesome game yet. So the fact that we haven't even seen that and they're still winning these games, I just feel like we're due for that to happen. I think this is a Michigan team that's going to turn the ball over and play right into Auburn in that way. It's a Michigan team that sometimes relies on their size and being in the paint and being successful there. I think you'll have a lot harder time against this Auburn team as well. So this is less about Michigan and more about Auburn. It's time for them to hit their peak.
Yeah, this one, to your point, Mackenzie, it looks like it could potentially get away from Michigan. And you're right, Auburn, the stock is as low as it could be. And they're still great, but I feel like they could absolutely explode on a team. It could be this Michigan team. Okay, Mike, I take offense to your play here in terms of advantageous matchups because Mackenzie probably does too. We've been betting BYU for like the latter half of the year here, and they keep paying off. But you like Alabama's matchup up against BYU in those Sweet 16.
I do, Sia, and it's no disrespect to BYU. They've been phenomenal and been really good in a lot of situations. I just don't like this matchup for them because I think Alabama can do everything that they can do just a little bit better in every single category. And you look at Alabama, they're going to be able to score points. They just put up 80 on St. Mary's. St. Mary's hadn't given up 80 points in over 100 games. They put up 94 on Florida, a team that we think could easily win this national title. And then you look up and down this Alabama team. I like the way Nelson is playing. I love Mark Sears right now. And I love the coaching staff with Nate Oates and what they're doing. They have a style of play that you're always going to call into question the defense. I think that this is the perfect kind of matchup for them where they're basically going to be in a track meet. They're going to be able to go out there and put up 85 to 100 points. And ultimately, I think that they become too much in this matchup. Keeping in mind, Alabama played the toughest strength of schedule in college basketball by a mile this season. When you factor in their non-conference and the conference play, they beat Houston outright earlier this year. I think Alabama is a sneaky team here.
Mike, I'm going to kick it right back to you because my next question was going to be what future, and by the way, offense taken, Mackenzie, right? Like, I'm not sure I love that dissertation against BYU. But with all that said, when we're looking at maybe best bets from a future standpoint with, again, only 16 teams left, is yours taking Alabama to win it all?
It is, look, obviously the path running into Duke is certainly the reason for the price point. But when you look at this particular team, they had been battle tested. The thing that I love about good SEC teams, the SEC has such a wide range of talent and a wide range of style of play. Like you get the games against Tennessee that are 1st to 60 win in a very physical game. You get the track meets. I think that they're set up well to really have a final possession kind of game against Duke. So I think the price point does not reflect the talent on the floor here, plus 1,500 on Bama.
Mackenzie, how about a future that you like?
I think Texas Tech is a sneaky team that has some pretty solid value to make it to the Final Four. I've said for a while, Florida feels like they are in the toughest region of the 1 seeds, and we saw it happen, right? Even though UConn's not the UConn of the past, to play the back-to-back national champions and their coach, let alone in general, like wasn't going to be easy, and it clearly wasn't. And then you have to go through Maryland, and then you have to go through Texas Tech. So I just feel like this Florida team could get caught a little bit worn down. We only make Texas Tech 4-point dogs to Florida in that game. So that can come down to a 1-possession, 2-possession game there as well. So I just feel like we'll get this version of Florida by the time they hopefully see Texas Tech. They might just be worn down relative to some other 1 seed. So if there's a 1 seed not making it to the Final Four, I think Texas Tech will be the one benefiting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We're actually going to talk more Texas Tech later on in the show, particularly that Florida matchup and what the SportsLine model and Mackenzie Brooks think. Mike McClure, thank you so much for all the insight, all the betting advice. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get Mike McClure's picks or Mackenzie Brooks' picks or my picks or anybody in the purview of SportsLine, go to sportsline.com/join. And if you type in the promo code winners, you get 60% off the annual plan. Again, sportsline.com/join. Type in the promo code winners and you get 60% off the annual plan. That's model projections, that's picks, that's model picks, you name it, sportsline.com has it. And coming up next, speaking of SportsLine, we look to the SportsLine model. We talk Texas Tech. We talk Florida. We talk more BYU. Florida, Maryland, overs, unders, props, you name it. We've got it right here on the Early Edge. We're back on the Early Edge. I'm joined, of course, by Mackenzie Brooks. And Mackenzie, my bracket is right here. I'm literally looking at it right here. It's not destroyed yet. And it's mostly because I went pretty chalky at the top. Like, I've got 3 of the 4 1 seeds at the top. And that's actually what brings me to my question, because we have all the 1 seeds remaining, right? I want to ask you, and you mentioned Florida in the prior segment. When we look at the 1 seeds, and I guess it would be Houston, it would be Duke, Auburn, and of course UF. What's the most likely 1 seed to go down?
As far as like legit percentage, chance to go down, we give Florida a 39% chance to lose to Maryland here. Now that's a decently higher than some of these other ones. The other underdogs in those 1 seed matchups have around like a 27 to 29% chance. So Maryland having a 39% chance to win that game is actually decently high. And I've said it since Selection Sunday. It feels like Florida just has the most exhausting path of all the 1 seeds, right? You have to play the back-to-back champions. Then you go into this red-hot Maryland team. Then you potentially go to Texas Tech, another team that we find a ton of value in as well. So if it's not Maryland taking them down, I feel like it could be Texas Tech in that second round as well. It just feels like they can't get a breath of fresh air. Even Houston, they get Purdue, and I don't think Purdue would have made it past if they were playing Clemson instead of McNeese. So like Purdue doesn't feel like they should be here. Houston feels like they get a lucky draw with them. Duke's just objectively better than Arizona in just about every category slightly. So these other 1 seeds just getting a little bit better of a draw.
Yeah. So, I mean, this parlays well with you liking Texas Tech and the points, right?
Yeah, I do like Texas Tech a lot. This is a team playing Arkansas, and I don't know how much all respect to Arkansas, but it felt like, St. John's beat St. John's, right? Like that was just, the huge glaring holes in St. John's and in Kansas too that brought Arkansas to this specific spot doesn't always correlate directly to Arkansas being so awesome in those spots. And for Texas Tech, like they've been ice cold from deep and they're still winning games and they're beating people from inside. So imagine once, similar to Auburn, like I mentioned earlier, once they start getting hot from 3, that can make them really dangerous. I think Arkansas is a team that really relies on that SEC athleticism. They force turnovers. Texas Tech literally doesn't turn the ball over. So you can't have your successful defensive scheme if, that offense isn't necessarily playing right into it. So I think Texas Tech minus the 5.5 is a very good early play to get on. All due respect to Arkansas, I just think they kind of lucky to be in this situation all the way up to this point.
And remind me, you in the last segment, you did like Texas Tech potentially, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm misquoting this, to make the Final Four, right? Like, and did I get that wrong because of their path?
Yeah. I mean, this is a team that, they're solid top 10 in a lot of metrics that truly do matter. I think their defensive efficiency, it's what's slightly off from that championship mold that we always talk about. But in general, like, their 3-point shootings at their floor and they're still winning games. And I said it for Auburn too. Like, we haven't even seen the ceiling here for this team. So I'm hoping if Florida even gets past Maryland does exhaust them. And then we see Texas Tech really take advantage of that Gators team.
Okay, Mackenzie, now that we got Mike McClure out of the way, can we have the honest conversation about BYU and Alabama? Just you and me. Nobody else is paying attention or nobody else is watching. Let's play pretend here. This line opened at 3.5. It's now 4.5. And so, again, BYU getting 4.5 against Alabama. I'm not going away from BYU here. Give me your take on this game, BYU and Alabama.
So, I'm a big BYU fan myself here. I think the mature play is to take 2 plays here and profit half a unit. I think if it's a close game, that favors BYU here, right? I think it's worth taking BYU money line. On the opposite side, you could take an alt line of Bama to win this game by like 7.5 points, and you're winning either way. Like the 2 game scripts to me are Bama crushes them, being Bama, and they get really hot from deep, and their offense is clicking on all cylinders. Or this is a close game where BYU could end up winning here. So I don't think there's a version of a close Alabama win. I think BYU, if they can keep their shooting up, if they're shooting a really high 3-point percentage here, this will be a very, very tough game for Bama. Maybe you're looking at an over as well, but I believe in this BYU team as long as they don't turn the ball over so much. That's like the one thing that sometimes plagues them. I think this could definitely be a possible upset here.